Hello, I'm Florence John Duo and welcome to Olsem Wanem. In this episode, we take a closer look at women's participation in politics and leadership roles. It is obvious that women continue to be grossly underrepresented in Parliament. Here in Papua New Guinea's Parliament, there are only 3 women out of the 111 members. We discussed the participation of women in politics with representatives from the United Nations Development Programme, the National Parliament, and the Department of Community Development and Religion.
Go into some funny behavior, funny attitudes, and it enables them to act without care, and they are not even fearing the law and order issue. There is another cult element that needs to be dealt with. We acknowledge him to one point where Minister of Education is working.
Only 10% of the SME is owned and controlled by National.
Speaker, according to the recent ministerial statement tabled in Parliament by the...
Now come up in law now. Narbla, but you discussing issue of national content.
Women's participation in politics and leadership roles has remained low, not only in Papua New Guinea, but across the Pacific region and globally. Women are still grossly underrepresented in national parliaments. Papua New Guinea's parliament currently has only 3 women members of parliament among the 111 members.
I'm Julie Bukikun. I'm the Assistant Representative for UNDP, Papua New Guinea Country Office, and also the Head of Governance. And in my role, I manage the governance portfolio of UNDP, and that covers a wide range of governance issues, one of which is working on gender equality, looking at women's empowerment. That's political participation, leadership, looking at social issues such as gender-based violence prevention. PNG is one of the countries in the region and even globally that has very low representation of women in parliament and indeed politics, and that's political participation. So in Papua New Guinea at the moment, currently, we have 3 women in parliament. That's all we have. Indeed, in the provincial governments, we do have women that are appointed, but they work within the provincial assembly. But if you talk about the national level where you're involving women in politics in parliament, we have only 3. So that's currently about 2.7%, of the national parliament having 111 members. So clearly, this percentage shows a very low level of representation of women participating in national, politics and leadership.
And so my name is Henry Nema. I work in the governance unit of UNDP. So supporting Julie on many of those areas, including leading the work around sustainable development goals. So that's mainly working with government through the Department of National Planning around trying to integrate sustainable development goals into national policies and plans, and some other activities including supporting Julie's work on gender-based violence, women in leadership, and other areas. Part of the last global agenda was the Millennium Development Goals. So the target in the Millennium Development Goals was to at least have between 15 to 30% of women who should be holding public offices, that's national and LLG seats. But unfortunately, as Julie said, we've only had 1 MP, 1 female MP, to now 3 MP. So we are still below 2.7%. So if you compare that to other countries, like for example Botswana, who has about 60%, and so many other countries in African region that has very high representation of women. So that's why, like in the Pacific, and particularly for Papua New Guinea, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of supporting women to be able to run for political offices and also representing constituencies and so forth at the leadership level.
Globally, there's still a very low representation of women. Some countries are doing quite well, especially, the Nordic states where they have more women. In America, there's still, need for increase, in Australia as well. But I think more and more what we're seeing is through sensitization, other awareness, such as us coming out to speak, other women, other gender advocates, it's going to improve. But at this time now, globally still, there is still need to, encourage women to stand up, encourage voters, sensitize them, giving them knowledge, skills, and so forth to, encourage them, support them to come out. I think in Papua New Guinea, more so because we, probably our cultural background and the kind of norms that we have also play a huge role in society and how people perceive women as leaders. So I think that's one of the big issues in the country where we need to encourage and also, create more awareness to change the mindset, to show the public that, a woman leader is as good as a male leader, and giving, that support to women.
Welcome back. Women's interest in politics and leadership roles have grown over the years. However, participation remains stagnant. In this segment, we discuss some of the barriers faced by women hindering their participation in politics and leadership roles.
Both men and women face challenges when it comes to entering politics. However, the challenges faced by women tend to be greater. Kopilyo Ima, Director of Social Sector from the Department of Community Development and Religion, highlighted that this was due to a number of reasons, ranging from domestic responsibilities, cultural attitudes on gender roles, lack of family support, confidence, and finances.
Some of the challenges are the reasons that the women are not in the parliament at this very moment as it's going up to the global, it says Rwanda is 63.8% is right now, but here we have only 3 members in the parliament. The challenges that we see as the Office for the Development of the Department, we have gone through, we have done research, we have seen them. It's like one is like the financial. The woman doesn't have the money to go against the manpower, so they cannot compete with the men. Okay, that's one. The financial issues, and the problem is another factor that we have in this country, that women are not getting into the parliament. The other is that they cannot stand up, like the leadership problem is another factor. They cannot stand up to speak up, because we in Papua New Guinea is only just only 10% is highly educated. The rest are back into the village. So leadership is another problem. The other problem is the culture problems, because when you see the culture, women are not allowed to go forward in the decision making. So that holds them back too. So they're afraid. Yep, and that's a big gap when you see the other global compare with the global. So that's what we are trying to do. We are trying to mainstream women into the parliament.
My name is Deborah Kanu, and I'm representing the National Parliament. I am I'm a committee secretary, and I represent the gender relations in the parliamentary service. From my opinion, from my perspective, working in parliament and looking out, I think there's a huge potential there, but there are barriers. I think one of our officers already mentioned that, but one that I see personally myself is that sometimes women, us ourselves, we don't really cooperate. There's a lot of, I've seen that women don't cooperate. They don't try to help each other, get things together, organize themselves, because one other group is fighting against the other one. They don't come together. And I think that's what I see. Otherwise now, women are beginning to get respected, and there's the equality, gender equality is beginning to take effect. But if we go back to the past years, there's been a lot of barriers. Mainly it's a cultural barrier. I think it's a cultural barrier, but women are beginning to improve because of women are getting educated, and government has given priority now with the policies now. So I think women are beginning to come up and they're getting more educated. We have the policy in education and educating a girl in the government policy, so I think that's also an area that we are improving on.
After the break, we ask, why is women's participation in politics and leadership important? And do the numbers matter? Welcome back. You're watching Olsem Wanem as we take a look at women's participation in politics and leadership roles. The road to parliament is less traveled by women due to many challenges, and achieving gender equality in parliament is not an easy matter. In 2011, PNG Parliament failed to pass the Equality and Participation Act, which would allow for 22 reserved seats for women in parliament.
Gender equality in political participation still remains a challenge for women in Papua New Guinea.
Like voting, but at this moment now we have only 3. So when you look at that, the gender equality is not implemented in this country. So then it becomes gender discriminations. So that's a gap in there. So in order for the gender equality to be implemented, that's by the legislations and the policies and the programs that we have in this country, we need 50-50 in the parliament. So then it will become, the gender equality will be in place. So that's where we need, the number is very important, we need 50-50.
In terms of legislation, in 2011, the proposed Equality and Participation Act, which enabled 22 reserved seats for women in parliament, failed to get the 2/3 majority vote.
You know, if there are serious gender issues in the country, not only gender but other issues as well, you need people who believe and can support that kind of agenda. And I'll also give you an example of back in 2011 when we were talking or working towards 22 seats for women. And clearly there's been a low representation of women. At the time, only Dame Carol Kidu was a female MP, and she actually supported that agenda and was driving it. But unfortunately, that bill to increase women's participation didn't go through simply because there was not enough numbers on the floor. Now that's a very easy example to see, but there are other examples, including issues on maternal health, and the continuing gender-based violence issues in the country, you know, the sort of issues women face to access credit, land issues, and so forth.
The question is, why is women's participation important in politics and leadership roles? And do the numbers matter?
Women are able to put the softer side of how women feel, because I know that the women they are more down to earth than some men, so they just talk about big things. When women are there, they're able to bring a lot of sensitive issues. They're able to debate that, and maybe that's another way of educating men, so that men will also understand from women's perspective, and if when more women are also coming into parliament.
So linking back to the Millennium Development Goal point that I mentioned, now the country has, or all the United Nations countries now have the Sustainable Development Goals. And so one of the points that he talked about in there is on the numbers that our colleagues have spoken about, that we have a specific number to work towards. So that is a target for the country that we want to work towards. And being able to, wanting to achieve that number that we want, then it needs, you know, all the stakeholders to participate. And so that involves government at all levels, people, private sector particularly, and the community, you know, the electors and so forth. So I think it needs a broad range of participation. And as Mr. Kali said, women are 50% of our population. They are represented in all the sectors. So we need not just the men and not just the women, but we need both the men and women and all sectors of the society to help support this agenda. And the point linking to the previous one that I raised, that globally, it is shown that where women have a lot more participation in leadership at the higher level, there is generally a good sort of outcome in development indicators. So that is why a lot of work around supporting women to get them into politics or participate at higher level of decision making, it's really key to our development. It's not just about numbers, it's for broader development agenda. So that is why getting women into position of power is really important for the broader development.
Welcome back. According to the United Nations Development Programme, or UNDP, a range of international and regional commitments have been made to promote women not only in the Pacific but in Papua New Guinea. The National Parliament of PNG, the Department of Community Development and Religion, the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, and UNDP have collaborated in organizing a practice parliament session for women. This session ended today here in Port Moresby.
The people sitting here with me are an example of the partnership that we have tried to pull together to support this topic on women's participation in leadership and in politics. So on my right here, the Department of Community Development, as you know, they play a really key role. And from our side, the development partner of the UN perspective, we need to work closely with the government's priority and the agenda that they have to advance women or gender equality in the country. So when we came together to work on this, we tried to reach out to the partners that are concerned about this, because the UN support here is about, as I said, supporting the government's agenda. We had to talk to National Parliament to see if they could support this, knowing that they also have a strong agenda to help women, especially through their kind of programs. They have a civic education, that they have program that they do outreach as well. We also, I should mention, that have worked closely with the Office for the Registrar for Political Parties. Unfortunately, we don't have someone here now, but they've been also very strong on supporting this agenda. So when you also go back to this question of partnership, I think for the UN on our side, we're working closely with the partners on the ground. It's a national government priority, and we're doing what we can to support them in that.
The Practice Parliament session for women provided a practical forum exposing 50 participants to the realities of policy making and being a parliamentarian. The session began on the 6th of March and ended on the 13th of March. The program consisted of 3 days of skills training to develop understanding of parliamentary processes, 2 days of skills training on campaigning and media engagement, and a day of practice parliament for women, where participants engage in a mock question time and debate a mock bill.
I just also wanted to just give a brief background on this work in the region, at least the ones that the UNDP supports. So the practice parliaments for women have come about because of a lot of interest from PNG as well as the other countries in the region. And since then, we've been conducting this, and we've seen the success of it being the feedback and the interest from women right across the region. So yes, in 2012, when we held the first one for PNG, we received almost up to 140 applications. And at the time, we could only get 40 of up to 45, I think, at the time. So that showed the level of interest that women had in this, and also probably the need to build their skills and knowledge, understanding the kind of things that they spoke about, understanding the role of being a parliamentarian. Also, in the course of the training, we teach them a little bit about campaign strategies, engaging with the media, also apart from the topics on policy and the debates that they could have if they came into parliament. So back then we had very good feedback. Some of the women that we trained went into the national election, and some also went into the local level election the following year in 2013. This year I'm happy and very pleased to say that we received almost 200 applications. And that again showed this huge interest in the country for this kind of trainings to be conducted and the support.
And that's all we have time for on Olsem Wanem. If you have any stories or comments you would like to share, please send us an email via the address on your screen or visit our Olsem Wanem Facebook page. From the Olsem Wanem team, thank you for watching, and it's goodbye for now.